want to be a part of the Black Work Center because I believe they can help my situation, and I'm motivated to stand up for an African American issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I come in the door, what do you do with me, first of all? I mean, is there some type of training that I would go through, or do you just say, hey, listen, great, we were glad to have you here, we'll call you, or I mean, just tell me, and I know every situation is different.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, so we recently hired a community organizer. So, you know, yeah, our staff is really like 2.5 people.
okay,
Because, so that's another challenge, right, in terms of just developing and implementing new structures so far. Although that's part of kind of where we're trying to get to. So it's, you know, I'm doing program management. We have the director of the program, Lola, and then we have a community organizer, Pearl. And so folks, you come in, you'll be introduced to our organizer, and she would do sort of an orientation with you. Just, you know, we really want folks to understand from the beginning of their interaction with us kind of what we're fighting for, what we're about, what we believe in. So we do take that step. Many of the workers who we've come in contact with, especially because we're doing the construction work, have been talking a lot about, or come to us because they're experiencing some discrimination issues on the job. And so we actually have a legal advisory committee that's supporting the Black worker rights, that Black worker rights work that we're doing. So we develop an intake form and a process for us to just understand more about kind of what's happening to them on the job, what's the situation. So the organizer talks to them about that and learns more about that, and then actually tells them about, so, and maybe it depends on what the situation is and what the assessment of that is. So we're trying to develop this network of the Legal Advisory Committee where people like LAFLA, the Legal Aid Foundation of LA have some legal support resources to give to folks, so we might refer them there. But the conversation with the organizer is important because it's also saying, although, you know, we don't provide services, we do want you to stay connected to the advocacy and action work that we're doing at the Worker Center. So we start the conversation there first, and then, you know, you should, you know, we have friends who can help you, but we will be in touch, you know, but there's a understanding that we want to stay in touch with them and contact them about action that they can take and continued support with the Worker Center. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay. Can you give some examples of the biggest, let's say, the Black Worker Center's biggest challenges? Okay, and along with that, some of the most interesting successes that it's had within this year or so span.
Well, I guess I was wanting to start with successes.
Okay.
I mean, just, of course, the main success, I think, is just that we've been able to get the center off the ground, and, you know, that we have established, you know, a location in South Los Angeles, and I think, you know, just what the center, because of just what the center represents for all of the, I mean, there was years of work that went into just leading up to this point. I mean, I mentioned the work of the African American Union Leadership School, but it also was work and research that was done by our partner, Stephen Pitts at the UC Berkeley Labor Center, who did a lot of research on just Black work conditions across the country. LA was one of the cities that he focused on, but so the center is really, we took a lot of that information from there in terms of like what was the need, what should be the strategy, and where we should have our focus. So it was really kind of, I think, a great success to be actualizing kind of a lot of the thoughts around like what if there was a center that was focused on these kind of issues. And now we have that. I think a lot of the folks who come in and talk to us really sort of appreciating just having a space where they can celebrate their identity and their own culture, and talk about the issues of work, the issues of organizing, what it means to build our community. So, I mean, there's that pieces of success, and I think just in terms of organizers speak about just policy work, we've done a lot on the construction work around just really creating a voice for Black workers in this discussion around local hire in the city and the county. So we've been pushing a lot around the policymakers being more intentional about being committed to making sure that discrimination is not happening in the hiring. So one of the ways we've asked them to do that is implementing language in the project labor agreements and local hire policies that says, you know, there is a commitment to enforcing anti-discrimination. We know that we're in a Proposition 209 state, and that, you know, there are limitations because of that, but there is not a reason why we can't say, you know, so we changed their idea from the language originally saying, you know, this is a Prop 209 state and there will be no, you know, there will be no discrimination, to something more positive that says we want to make sure that, you know, the workers who are working on these projects need to represent what the city looks like and the diversity of the city. So it's one beginning step into that. So there are three of the most recent project labor agreements from the city that have been creating new work and construction have been influenced by the Black Workers Center, saying there needs to be this language. And it was, you know, we were like one of the main community voices that was there representing to say that needed to happen.
Okay, and definitely the successes are noted. The challenges, and I understand the Worker Center itself could have been one of the biggest challenges and successes.
I know, I can.
But is there anything that's outside of the structure and pulling that together, any actions or any pushbacks from any government agencies or any particular corporations that, you know, come to mind that are particularly that you may be working with that you'd like to, you know, win favor with, or just what challenges come to mind?
I mean, well, now there's another project labor agreement that's being negotiated right now. So I don't know if you are, so one of the sort of part, we're in the stage right now where the MTA voted to adopt this project labor agreement and a local hire policy, what they call it, targeted hire policy. That says, right, they are willing to make sure that so it's going to cover 5 years of projects. The Crenshaw rail line is part of that. So if this work is created, then a percentage of that work, 30% of that work the hours should be done by folks who live in targeted zip codes. So the zip codes where the unemployment rate is at 200% or 150% of the county's unemployment rate. And so we see that was a victory. But the challenge, right, was to make sure that, I mean, it's a fight, right, to get a board like the MTA to understand the need to do something like that. That we had to organize community, have folks there giving testimony, saying why this is important. We had to do a lot of work leading up to that. I mean, we partnered with other organizations who helped to understand that. You know, Lane is one organization that developed this construction careers policy, which we supported. But we also want to see, so the next step, the next phase is really, are they really going to make sure that there's enforcement? Are they going to make sure that there's monitoring to see that, you know, just because you have a policy doesn't mean that you are going to, that it's going to work, right? It's just language until we put it in action.
They're going to follow the policy.
Right, so that is a major challenge, and making sure that folks are really listening and want to, and that takes will, a lot of where's the willpower, right, from them, or the will on the part of these elected officials, that we have to push them, right, to have that will to implement those kind of changes and to put the right number of staff in place who can monitor and make sure that compliance is happening with the employers. So that's a big one, right?
Please be aware that you are answering quite a few of the questions, you know, that we're leading into. So, if you note that you have already spoken on, like you might mention Lane, we're just going to move on down, and I believe where were you at? 7? Okay.
Can you give us a brief overview of the Bling and the Winter programs, please?
Sure, and then, you know, Winter is not one of our programs, but yeah, it's a separate, another organization.
Oh, okay.
Well, one organization that we've been partnering with. So the Bling program, the Black Leaders in Green, is a program that we just had an event a couple of Saturdays ago, just launching that, where we were looking at this issue of access and retention in the building trades, and so in the unionized construction trades, right? So we have a Black Labor Construction Council of veterans from the building trades, Black workers who've been working in construction for a long time, who have talked about the need for mentorship, the need for, in order to make sure that there's retention there. So you can't just give someone the skills and say people need soft skills, you know, how to do an interview and how to nail, put a hammer a nail, but that there needs to be another layer, especially for communities that have been left out of this industry for a long time and aren't pushed out once they get access to the industry, that there needs to be some sort of network and support system for them. And so the Bling Institute really is about how do we develop that. So it's political education, and mentorship connected together and helping on the pathway into the apprenticeship program so that you can get union work.
And how large is the mentoring, how many basically mentors do you have currently?
There's somewhere between 10 and 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a start.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's good too. Let's say, being an African American myself, you know, just to get involved with and get outside of your own family and say, listen, I'll spend some time, take some time to do this to help. You know, for one, you're helping your industry, and then you're helping your you know, you're helping someone that is struggling maybe as you do. And that is Mary Bell. She is someone running late. And,
I met her before.
You met her before?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we met at the interview.
Let's
That was
see.
a long time ago.
Okay. Okay, and that's someone leading into our question number 8. It talks about does the Black Worker Center provide other workshop courses and training structured to emphasize the development of the workers? Or is there anything outside of Bling and it appears as though Winter, like I said, you're loosely connected. You're connected, but loosely, you know, that's not your program. Is there any other programs that are being developed?
I know, I was just looking at.
Basically
we
to develop the
actually,
worker.
we are launching a Spanish for Black Workers course. So that was another thing, you know, in the leadership school discussions. I mean, we're in Los Angeles. We know
So
there's
Spanish
for Black
Oh,
workers.
okay, this
Yeah.
is speaking Spanish.
Yes.
Okay.
So
course,
sort of structuring it towards like a vocational Spanish course. So knowing that this is one of the barriers that a lot of Black workers talk about in terms of
Absolutely.
gaining employment in Los Angeles. We know
Right,
that.
they may not know how to speak the full language, but they can name the tools and the.
Right. So in construction, it might
Right,
be that.
okay.
It might be, you know, if it's customer service, it's, you know, how do you talk to a customer or a client, just to get someone, you know, what are some of the, and really like doing some introductory tools that folks can use just to be conversational in the language. So that's something that we hope to actually launch at the beginning of next year. So we're talking about partnering with a vocational program at LAUSD so that we can do that. And we'll start off with a pilot program, right, with construction workers. We'll talk about, right, just as the industry is changing, right, it's a Black and brown is the workforce, and as long as, and you know, it's also not just about the language, but again, back to this issue we're talking about a lot of community building. So how do we build that, you know, those bridges with our brothers and sisters? This is one way in, right, when we're together in the workplace too, that that's an opportunity for us to do that. So trying to see if that's somewhere we can make that happen.
Absolutely, and see, that's information we can't get on the internet, or well, that's not on the internet.
right.
Yeah, so
It's
that's
new.
what we, so,
I'm guessing this, well, you gave us some of the organizations you have worked with, but does the Black Worker Center work closely with other worker centers, religious institutions, nonprofits organizations, community organizations, or activist groups?
I mean, yeah, a lot of, like I told you, that we have such a small staff that it really is by the grace of allied networks that we're able to do the work that we are doing and to move as far as we have. So, you know, partnering a lot. It was a lot of initial conversations with the other worker centers that are already established in LA that helped us to create the model that we have now.
could you name a couple?
The Filipino Worker Center is really helpful in that. EDEPSCA talks a lot with Indilon and about the day labor organizing network. Talking to CHIRLA about how they got started,